Yes. So we started file handling yesterday, and as we know that file, it is something a permanent storage of data which we store on the disk. Example can be text files, that can be .data file, can be PDF, Excel files. Now files can be of different type. Now the folder or a directory is also kind of a logical way to group multiple files. We can have multiple files inside a folder also, right? Then the possible operations that we perform usually on a given file or a folder, we can create a new file or a folder. We can delete a file or a folder. We can rename a file or a directory. We can write to a file or we can directory. We can read from a file or from a list of files from a given directory. We can set or get the permissions, listing of files in the given folder. We can sort the files in a given folder. So these are typical operations we can perform, right? Now these operations we can do manually also, just like creating a file manually with the help of operating system. But sometimes what happens, you want to create a large number of files or you want to create a large number of folders. Manually doing that will take a lot of time. So what we do, we can take help of programming. Now I want to do the file copy. I want to copy the particular content from one file into another. So manually also we can do that, but it will take a lot of time, right? So what do? We use file handling to perform all these operations. We do file handling to do these possible operations. So file handling provides several classes, interfaces, as we have seen, and all of these classes or interfaces you will find inside the java.io package. And we have yesterday seen file class. So it is a concrete class which is present inside the java.io package, and this object, now this file class object represents only one file or a folder. Using this class, what we can do, we have certain methods to create a file or a folder. We can rename a file or a folder. We can delete a file or a folder. We can get the path of a file. We can set or get the permissions. We can get list of files from a given folder. We can get or set the file created or modified time. Now remember, if you create file class object, immediately it will not create the object. If the file is already there, it will just create a reference to that particular file, right? So to create a file, we have seen we use a create new file method. If the file is created, it will return true, otherwise it will return false. Now to create a new folder, there is a method called as mkdir, which what it does, it actually creates a folder. Then if you want to delete a file or folder, we have delete method. If you want to set permission, set readable, set writable, true or false. Writable, set writable, false means you cannot write to a file. Now the file is only read only. Now I want to get the list of files. I want to get list of files, list of file names. So we have a method called as folder.list. So I have a folder, and that particular folder I want to get a list of file names. So that you can do with the folder.list. Now sometimes there is a requirement that you want to actually get the file names for a specified name. So let's say you want to know all the files whose name starts with demo1 or something like that, or the file names ending with .java or .e extension. What is the extension? We can specify that. Now I do not want only names, I want the entire file objects, so that I can get the properties of that particular file, like file name, permissions, size, everything you can get. So with will give you file. Now if you see here, we are getting file array. This is a file object array. This is not a normal string array, this is a file object array. Okay. Now you want to get the list of file objects given in a folder with a filter. You do not want all the file objects, you want a specified particular object. Then we have used yesterday this filter, right? Now so far we have just worked on the file. We haven't read or write to a file. Right? So let's see couple of programs that we have seen yesterday. We'll just quickly go through that. Now here we create a file class object. There we specify the file name. Now this file will be created in the current directory itself, like this. Then file dot, this is the reference, file dot create new file. This will create a new file if the file is not there in the current directory. If the file is already there, it will not create. Now in this case, file is already there. So if I run this program, the file will not be created and this will return me false. Now this method is going to return true or false. Now if the new file is created, it will return true, else it will return false.
Sir, can you come again with this, please?
This one.
Yeah.
So there is a class called as file, and I have just reference to that particular file class object, and I have just given the abc.txt as a constructor value. So abc.txt is the file name. abc.txt is the file name. So what happens? We have just created an object. Now file is not actually created. Remember, now if you see here, with this reference, I call a method file.createNewFile. So this method will return true if the file is created newly. But if the file is already there in the same folder, it will not create the new file, and it will return false. Now in our case, we got.
So, sorry, sir. So this means that it does two things at one time, right? It creates a file as well as it checks whether that file is there or not. So it returns a Boolean value.
No.
Is that right?
No. So create new file method, what it does, this simply checks if the file is already there, it will have a reference to that particular file. Otherwise, it will create a new file. Now in this case, let me open the file. Where is that? Yeah. Now let me delete this file. Okay, so I have deleted the file. Now what will happen? A object is created at this line. Remember, object is created at this line, and the file will be created when you call the method create new file. Now when file will be created? If the file is already not there. If the file is already not there, then it will create a file and it will return saying that file is created true. So it will return true if the file is created with the help of this method. Now see here, we don't have the file yet. Under src only.
This is how it is doing two things at one time. It is creating a new file as well as checking whether that file already exists or not. So it returns the Boolean value.
No, it will, there is simply a if else. If file is not present already, then create a new file, else do not create a file, just return false.
Okay.
See, simple. What this method does, create new file. It simply does a simple check. If file, whatever specified, let's say abc.txt file is already there, if it is present, it will not create new file, else it will create a file and will return true. In this case, it will return false. See here. Now I will just go to the next step. If you see here, file object is created. File object is created with a reference. Now it has only file name abc.txt. File is not created yet. File is not created yet. Now after doing this step over, now you will see that file will be created here. The file is created. If you see, it's created has written me true. And I will just go to the next step. Now see here, abc.txt file is created now, just now. This file is created just now. See here, 1/8/1149. Right, now let me delete this file once and I will run the program one more time. Now file will be created inside this folder. Once the program is run successfully, it will create a file inside this particular folder. See here, this is created just now. Now if the file is created, it will return true. Okay, now see here, file is already there. I will try to run this one more time. Now this will return me false because file is already there. File is already there. File is already there. So it is returning me false. Right? So file is created now? No. File is not created now because file is already there. Then I try to create a folder also. Now I try to create a folder. Under that I have a folder. Let's say I will create a folder.
No, sir, it's the file inside the
File inside a folder. Okay, sorry. File inside a folder. So I will try to create a folder under this. I will create a folder, new folder, and inside that I will try to create a. Now I created a folder. There is nothing. Now you have to just specify the complete path of the folder and then just write the file name abc.txt. Now when I run this, the file will be created. File will be created in this particular folder. Yes, created? Yes. Then we have seen how to create a new folder in a folder. Now inside that particular folder, file handling, I have to create a folder. So how do we do that? File, this is a reference. What is this? This is a reference. This is just a reference. This is a reference to a. This is a reference. So reference.mkdir stands for create directory. Now when I run this program, in this particular folder called as file handling, there will be a folder, new folder will be created. What is the name of the folder? Folder 1. A folder will be created called as folder 1.
Create and make directory, these are actually reporting the action what is done.
Yes.
True and false, that is it. Only one action.
Yes. It is creating the folder 1. Right. Then I want to delete a file. Now if you see, there is a file already created, abc.txt. There is a file. Now I want to delete this file abc.txt. Now I will simply say on this one.
This
I have ran different thing. We'll run this. Now this file will be deleted. So delete, we simply say file.delete. Sorry, it is deleted. It should be deleted.
yeah, it's fine. But it's
Deleted. If you do this, file is deleted, return true. Now file is not there and I try to delete that. File is not there and I try to delete that. What will happen? It will return me false. It will return me false because file is not there. It is taking time because there are a lot many softwares running in the background. False. Take. Now let's see, delete file in a folder. Now there is a file inside the folder called as abc.txt. Now I want to delete that. Now we have already created the file. I will just try to delete that. Now this file I want to delete abc.txt. So simply you have to specify the complete path and the file name, and then you say file name, that is particular delete. True? It is true. Simple. Similarly, if you want to delete a folder, I can delete that folder similarly here also. So I will just click on this. You specify the folder name and you say folder.delete. And this folder will be also deleted. Tick. Folder is also deleted. Now I want to know the file size also. Now let's say there is a file called as file handling.txt. So file is not there. I will just create the file handling.txt. So I will create a file. You can create the file like this also, text file. Now there is nothing. I will just try to write some content. Tick. Now I want to know the length of this particular file. Length means what is the size of this. So it will give me the character y. So how many characters are there? Length means how many characters are there. So that you will get. So file dot length. Simple. That is 19 characters including spaces. Now I want to know the permissions of a file. Now I have to create a file abc.txt. I will just create a file abc.txt. Then I will say set the permissions. Now I do not want this file to be edited. I do not want this file to be edited. Now file will be created. Now what I want, I don't want to edit this file. I don't want to edit this file. So this should be only readable. Now you are able to read. You should be able to write also. So file handling permissions. Now you have written this. Let me close this. Now I am trying to set file is already there. Create no file will not be created. Set writable is false. Why? Because file is already there. So I don't want to create new file because file is already there. Now let's try to write set writable equal to false. Means this particular file will be only read only. This file will be only read only. Set to read only. Now let's try to open that file. Reader mode. If I try to write something, it is saying clear read only status. So we have to say like this. So this is only read only. If I say true, true means now that file status will be changed to writable, means we can write that to particular file. Done. It is building, it is taking some time. Let's try to write again. We are able to write that. It is saved. This is file permission. We have seen how to set and something that file permission. We can get the permission also. We are able to get the permission. What is the permission of this particular? Can we write to this file? Answer is yes, because last time we have said we can write. So this will return me true. Right? Yes, we can. File permission equal to true. So it means we can actually do that. Now next, in the exception handling, now this is the path src. Under src, exception handling is the folder. Inside this folder, I want to get list of all file names. So how do I do that? Folder dot list. So this will give me an array of strings. So each string is nothing but a file name. And then whatever the array of files or string names I have, then I'm just printing that. That's it. So I'm printing the
List of all the files.
list of file name. List of file names. See, these are the list of file names. right? Now there is no filtration in this particular. Now let's say in this particular folder, I have multiple other files, and I do not want all the other files. Now I want only files whose name starts with demo1. So that filter I have created. This is a lambda expression we have created. File name filter is a lambda. This is a functional interface, and which has a accept method that I have implemented here. Now this is just a definition. This is just a method definition. Now who is going to call this method? The list method internally is going to call this method simply, right? So you can create a file name filter like this also. Class file name filter impl implements. What is that? File name filter. This also you can do that. So same thing, accept. I will accept the file and directory. I will say same thing, whatever I have written, I will write the same logic here. So what is the file name we have? This is the name. This is the file name. If the file name, this is actually a file name, I will keep this as file name. If the file name starts with demo1, this method will return true. That's it. Now you can simply pass, instead of this file name filter, you can pass new file name filter impl. This is one of the option also, traditional way. Right, this also you can do, or you can build an anonymous class also. But we have used lambda expression. Okay, so we have multiple options. So I assume that you know the lambda anonymous class and how to implement the interface. On basis only that I have created this. Now what it does, this will simply return with a list of files whose name starts with demo1. So I will not get this demo2, demo3, demo4, demo5. I will get only, if you see, demo1, 10, 11, 12 like this. So I am not getting this demo2, 3, 4, 5 like this. I am getting only the files whose starting with demo1. Simple. Now you are just getting the names of strings, filtered names. Now sometimes there is a requirement, I don't want this is what we have done. Okay, that's fine. Now I want a file object. I don't want the string. I don't want the file names. I want the entire file objects. For that we use list files. A folder.list files. So this will give me the file object, list of file objects. This is a file array, and each iteration I get one file. Each file I get the get name and the length.
Not just the name, but the full attributes of
Full attributes. What is the name of the file? What is the path? What is the length? Everything we are getting in this now. Okay. So this is your file object listing. Now you want file objects only, but based on their name. Selection criteria you can have. So there we are getting list files, and there you are specifying the same lambda, and this time you will get the filtered list of file objects. Now this time you will have only files whose name starts with demo1. So this is also a very useful feature. See here. So each file name and their length that we are able to get. Now I want to do read write operations on the given files. I want to perform read and write operations on the given file. So far we have just created the files. We have just simply created, updated, deleted the files. Now I want to read from a file or I want to write to a file. So for that purpose we have different set of classes. अभी तक हमने बस एक ही क्लास देखी है, उसका नाम है फाइल क्लास. तो इस फाइल क्लास का यूज़ करके आप नई फाइल बना सकते हैं, उसको अपडेट कर, उसको डिलीट कर सकते हैं, उसको रीनेम कर सकते हैं, फोल्डर बना सकते हैं, उस फोल्डर को डिलीट कर सकते हो, उस फोल्डर को रीनेम कर सकते हो, फिर उसका लेंथ चेक कर सकते हो, फिर एक फोल्डर के अंदर जो भी फाइल्स है उसको लिस्ट डाउन कर सकते हो विथ फिल्टर्स. वी कैन डू दैट. ये सारा हमने इसका दिखा था. लेकिन फाइल क्लास का यूज़ करके आप रीड राइट तो नहीं कर सकते. उसकी मेथड्स उन्होंने एक ही क्लास में नहीं ऐड. उन्होंने अलग अलग क्लासेस बनाई है जो आपको फाइल को रीड राइट करने के लिए हेल्प करेंगी। ठीक है, चलो, दिस वाज व्हाट वी हैव सीन yesterday. This part we have seen yesterday only. ठीक, so we'll try to learn something new today. So yesterday also we have list down the hierarchy also. So to perform read write operations we have two sets of classes, input stream, output stream. Now input stream, output stream, these are abstract classes. File input stream, buffered input stream, object input stream, these are the classes which extends input stream. So file, buffered, object, output stream, they extend output stream. There we have two classes, reader, writer, both are abstract classes, and this is file reader, buffered reader, which extends reader class. File writer and buffered writer extends writer class. Simple. This is the hierarchy we have seen. We'll continue on the next part. Now today we are going to learn how to read, write from the files. We'll try to learn how to read or write the files. Now pay attention carefully. Now what we are trying to do, now we have two different entities. Now this is your Java application, this is your Java application. Now from your Java application, now there are two things, either you are going to read data to the Java application or you are going to write to a, you are going to read or you are going to write. Now this can be, this is your source, this is your source, and this is your destination. So you are going to read from this source and you are going to write to the destination. Now either you are going to read or you are going to write. Now source can be, now source of data reading, now source can be a file, source can be a file, source can be a buffer. Buffer means a temporary storage. Buffer is nothing but a temporary storage. We'll talk about that also. Now you can read directly from the file or you can read from a buffer also. Buffer is nothing but a temporary storage. Okay? Now you can read from a file, you can read from a buffer also, or you can write to a file or you can write to a buffer also. Right? Now sometime you want to read an object. Now you want to read the data from an object which is stored in the file. So your input can be object, you can write to object also. You can write to object. You can write, you can read from an array also, or you can write to an array also. Now there are multiple things. There are multiple things. Now source can be, you want to read data from the console also. Now console can be a keyboard. You want to read data from the keyboard. You want to write to a console. So there are multiple things. Your source can be different, source and destination. From source you are going to read, and from in the destination you are going to write. ठीक? This is a simple operation we are going to perform. Now in this topic we are focusing only based on the file, buffer and object mostly, because that is mostly use case, file, buffer and object. I will try to read from a file, we'll try to read from a buffer also, we'll try to read from an object also. We'll try to write to a file, we'll try to write to a buffer, we'll try to write to an object also. So these are the operations we have. Right? Now what we are trying to do, we are going to read and write the data. We are trying to read and write the data. Now as we know that data can be of two different types. One can be a text data or character data, char or text data. Now other data can be binary data. Example, your audio, video, songs. Now there can be multiple images. So this such a type of data, there are two types of data. This is one type of data, this is another type of data. Now data can be this binary format or this can be a character format. Right? Able to understand this one? Data can be this binary format or this can be a character format. Take. Now you are trying to read from these multiple sources and you are trying to write to a destination. Now, if you want to transfer some data, there should be some medium. There should be some medium to transfer the data. Now, let's say I want to transfer data from my, let's say, SSD to this one. So I have to add a cable. Now, what is that cable? Cable you can think of as a medium or a channel, right? Now you can think of, now let's say in your house, you will be getting the input water and there will be some output water also going out of the house. So input water, you get the water through pipes. So what are these pipes? Pipes are nothing but channel, medium, which is using to transfer the data or transfer the water from one location to another, right? Now let's say we have different pipes in a house. We have, let's say, gas pipe, then we have a water pipe. So that pipeline which contains the gas, which we call it as gas pipeline. The pipeline which contains the water, we call it as water pipeline, right? Now we have inlet and outlet also. So based on the content we have, we call it as whether this is a gas pipe or a water pipe, right? Now similarly, now what is stream? I am talking about what is stream. It is just a logical connection. It is just a logical connection between source and destination to carry the data. To carry the data. Very simple. Now you can think of stream as a kind of a pipe. Right? This is your stream. Stream is nothing but you can think of as a connection, logical connection between source and destination. Right? Now you can think of stream as a pipe also. You can think of pipe. Now stream can carry two things. Stream can carry two types of data. Stream can carry two types of data. One can be character. One can be binary or byte. We can call it as binary or byte. Right? We can call it binary or byte oriented streams. Now based on the type of data they carry, we have two types of streams: byte oriented streams and character oriented streams. Right? Right? Now I have byte oriented streams. What I have? Byte oriented streams. Now byte oriented streams can be of two types again. Byte oriented streams can be two types. What are the two types? It can be for reading purpose or it can be for writing purpose. Now there are two types: input stream and output stream. Now stream, I am using the word input stream and output stream. These are the two abstract classes. These are the two abstract classes. Abstract class. We cannot create the object, but we can. Now, what is this input stream? Now, let's say input means this is your Java application. This is your Java application. Now, I want to read data from these sources and I want to write to this particular destination. Now, in order to read data from this source, this is your source, this is your Java application, and this is your destination. This is your output kind of. Now you are getting input to the Java application, you are reading the input to the Java application. So this is also kind of a pipe. So if this pipe carries bytes, we call it as input stream. If this carries bytes, then it is called as output stream. This is the input stream and this is the output stream. Okay. Now what is input stream? Input stream is a logical connection between source and your Java application. It is a logical connection between your source and Java application to transfer the bytes. Now output stream is a logical connection between your Java application and the destination, which is used to transfer the bytes from your Java application to the destination. So based on the direction, if you are reading to the Java application, we have input stream. If you are writing from Java application to the other destination, we have output stream. ठीक है, stream अभी याद ऐसे ही याद रख सकते हो. Stream is kind of a logical connection. Now there can be input stream or that can be output stream also, right? अब ऐसे भी सोच सकते हो कि घर में पानी आता है, एक पानी वाला इनकम इनलेट होता है और एक आउटलेट होता है. That is one stream. This is stream. Both are carrying the water only. Yes, but one is input stream and other one is output stream. दोनों में क्या है? Water. So similarly, input stream and output stream, these are two different kind of pipes or channels. One is used to read the data and one is to transfer the data or write the data. Right? So based on this, now if a stream carries character, then we have character oriented streams. Now character oriented streams, if you want to read, we have reader, it is abstract class also. And if you want to write, then we have writer. These are the two different classes. Take. Now let me once again come back. Now we have two streams. Now streams can be two types. Byte oriented, streams, and then we have character oriented streams. These are the two types of streams we have. Now byte oriented streams, again we have two types. What are the two types? Input stream and we have output stream. Now character oriented streams, again we have two types, reader and writer. So remember, all these four classes are abstract classes. All of these are abstract classes. Now let's do a division here. Now again, input stream, output stream, they carry byte oriented data. Reader and writer, they carry character oriented data. Now input stream, again we have concrete classes. Now input stream class is extended by multiple other classes. So what is the first class? File input stream. Now if I want to read from a file in terms of bytes, then what is the class that you are going to use? File input stream. Now similarly, I want to write to a file in terms of bytes, then I have a file output stream. Now I want to read from a buffer in terms of bytes. So for that I have a class called as buffered input stream. Now I want to read for that from a buffer in terms of bytes, we have is buffered input stream. Now I want to write in terms of bytes to a buffer, then we have buffered output stream. Now I want to read a object in terms of bytes, so we have a object input stream. Now I want to write a object in terms of bytes, then we have object output stream. So these are the classes we are going to learn as part of your So we using these classes, we are going to read from a file, we are going to write to a file in terms of bytes, we are going to read from a buffer, or we are going to write to a buffer in terms of bytes, we are going to read an object in terms of bytes, or we are going to write an object in terms of bytes. Similarly, reader and writer, reader class is extended. Now I want to read from a file, but in terms of characters. So I have a file reader class. I want to read from a buffer in terms of character. So I have buffered reader. Similarly, I want to write to a file in terms of character. I use file writer. I want to write to a buffer in terms of character. Then I have buffered writer. That's it. Now you don't have to mug up a lot of things.
Object will be based.
Nahi. Object will be like this. That's it. So stream is a logical connection between two entities, source and destination. Now source can be, now your file, source can be a file, source can be a buffer, source can be an object. Now you want to write, now destination can be a file, destination can be a buffer, destination can be object, right? Now in this you are reading and writing in terms of bytes. Now I want to read and write in terms of characters. For that purpose I have reader and writer. I want to read from a file in terms of characters, I use file reader. I want to read from a buffer in terms of character, I have buffered reader. I want to write to a file in terms of characters, so I have file writer. I want to write to a buffer in terms of character, so I have buffered writer. I have buffered writer. See, these are the classes using which we are going to read and write from a file or to a file. Now, first of all, if you want to read or write to a file, there should be a file present. Then only we can perform the read and write operations. ठीक? यहाँ तक clear है सबको? Everyone? Okay, no problem. Okay, let's go to the ID. We'll try to use these classes. So first we'll try to read from a file in terms of bytes. We'll write to a file in terms of bytes. We'll try to read from a file in terms of character. We'll try to write to a file in terms of character also. So we'll try both the ways. This is very simple. Okay. Now, whatever the demos we have seen yesterday, these are all for file class. So all these we have seen related to file class. Read write. We'll try to do read write. Now first I will try to use file input stream demo. Now what I will do, I will have this file and I want to read from this file. So to read and write in terms of bytes, we have multiple classes. This is the exact content I am going to read. Now to read and write in terms of bytes, we have multiple classes. So first class, there is file input stream. What is the first class? File input stream. So what is this class useful for? Using this class, we can read from a file in terms of bytes. File input stream any byte. Now similarly, file output stream. Using this we can write to a file in terms of bytes. Similarly, we have file reader, file writer. Using this we can read from a file in terms of characters. Using file writer we can write to a file in terms of characters. Simple. Now we have one more classes. So we have, instead of file, now we have buffered input stream, buffered output stream, buffered reader, buffered writer. Now using this we can read from a buffer in terms of bytes. We can write to a buffer in terms of bytes. Using this we can read from a buffer in terms of characters. Using this class we can write to a buffer in terms of characters. These are the 8 classes. Now we have 2 more classes, object related. So I have object input stream. Similarly, then we have object output stream. So using object input stream, using this class we can read a object in terms of
bytes.
Read an object in terms of bytes. Using this class we can write an object in terms of bytes. Tick. So these are the classes we are going to use. Now abc.txt, this is the file I have. Now I want to read this from this file as it is. I will read the content as it is and I will print the content on the screen, right, on the console. So already I have a file, so I don't need to create a new file. File is already there. What is the file name? abc.txt. The file is already there. Take. File is already there. Now I want to read from a file in terms of bytes. Read from a file in terms of bytes. So for that purpose, what we use file input stream. This is the class. Very simple. So we have already file, then we create an object of file input stream class. New file input stream, and file input stream needs a input file because you want to read. Now let's say you have provided a file name and which is not there. Now what will happen? You will get an exception. What is that exception? File not found exception. Now who is going to handle that exception? File not found exception. You are going to handle that because you are trying to read from a file. That's it. Now this file contains a lot of data. So I don't know how much data we have. Now I need to do this in a loop one by one byte I am going to read. So what I do? File input stream dot read. So this read will give me a number or a character input. Check. I will get a input. Now this method throws a IO exception. That's why I will give IO exception. Now what do we do? Now this method, if I print the output, what will happen? It will give me only 1 byte. So what I do, I typecast this to the character. Otherwise it will give me the ASCII value. So I typecast this to. Now this will give me only 1 character. This will give me only 1 character too. but I don't want only two, that is t. I want entire thing. So I have to use a loop. So what I did, a file input stream object created, I have specified the file, and there I have got the input, file input stream dot read. So it will read only single byte, and that will be stored inside the input. ठीक. T. I don't want only T, I want entire thing. So for that purpose, what we do this in a loop. So how many times I have to continue this? How many times I have to read this? So file dot length, instead of that, what you do, you keep on getting the element, you do keep on reading the element. At the end, it will return -1. So when you reach, you will continuously read, and what you do, I will use file, and I say input is not equal to 0. Input is not equal to, sorry, -1. So at the end, it will just, now what I do, each iteration I just do this, each iteration I just do this, and I print this. Before I get to the next character, I will just print that, and I will remove this println, and I will simply do a typecasting, and I will do input. That's it. This is your. Now whenever you are done with the reading from a file, it is a good practice that you close the stream. This is kind of a tab. This is kind of a tab only you have opened. Close means close the stream. That's it. First you create the object, file is already there. Then you just specify the file object. Then you read from this file input stream, first character, first letter, and you will continue till this time, till the end of file. At the end of file, this method will return -1. This method will return -1. Now let's try. And what you do, you print that input and typecast that with the character. So it will print the character. Now once you print the character, you just get the next character and you assign that to input, and this will continue till the time we have elements.
It will automatically go to the next element.
Yes.
So once it reaches it goes automatically.
Correct.
So an array assignment can happen.
Correct. See here, we are able to print everything.
Yes.
This is printed. So what we did, we read from the file with the help of file input stream. First we get the first byte that we stored inside the input. Then at the end, input will be -1. So we'll continue till the time you don't have the -1, and we get each input, we print that, typecast that, and then we get the next input. Now this will continue till the time of end of your file. So at the end of file, you will get -1, and that time -1 not equal to -1. What will happen? Yes. Simple?
Yes.
Okay. Now this is the way we are able to read from a file. Now similarly, I want to write to a file. Now what I will do, I will write to a file. So how do I write to a file? I will read from this file. And I will write to a new file. That is kind of a copying content of one file into another file. So I will do that. File copy, that is file write, and that is copy. This demo2. Now what I want to do, first of all, I will read from the file. First of all, I will read. Now I will say file source file. I will just give the name as source file. Go to new file. And file name is, let's say, abc.txt. First of all, what I will do, I will just try to write to a file, then we will try to think of something else. Let's say pqr is the file. I will create this file, create the file, file dot create new file. Okay, file will be created and I will say throws IO exception. Okay. Now what I will do, I will write to a file. Now in order to write to a file, write to a file in terms of bytes. What is the class? I want to write to a file in terms of bytes. What is the class name? बाइट्स में आपके पास दो ही है, इनपुट स्ट्रीम, आउटपुट स्ट्रीम. इनपुट में आपके पास फाइल इनपुट स्ट्रीम, देन बफर इनपुट स्ट्रीम, ऑब्जेक्ट इनपुट स्ट्रीम. आउटपुट में आपके पास फाइल आउटपुट स्ट्रीम, buffered output stream and object output stream. That's 6 classes. In terms of streams, we have 6 classes. File input stream to read, for reading purpose, we have file input stream, buffered input stream, object input stream. To write, we have file output stream, buffered output stream, and object output stream. That's it. And for character oriented streams, you have reader, writer. Reader के लिए आपके पास file reader, buffered reader. Writer के लिए आपके पास file writer and a buffered writer. That's it. So I want to write to a file in terms of bytes. File output stream. So class name is file output stream. So in order to write to a file, first of all file should be there. So I will give the reference. Tick. Now, how much data you want to write? You want to write single character, single byte or multiple bytes? You can decide that. Right now I am just going to write a single character or something like that. So what I will do, file output stream dot write, and I will say, let's say A. So A I am going to write. Now once you are done with the writing, it is good practice that you close file output stream dot close, and I will say file write operation done. That's it. A file will be created, that reference will be given to this file, and I say file output stream dot write, and I specify the character, single character. Then I say file output stream dot close, and then I say file route operation done. That's it. Very simple.
Yes.
Now it is always advisable, if you are having character data, use reader and writers instead of stream, byte streams. Now you will try to write now file will be created, file dot operation done. PQR.txt. Now there is a content, we have A. So if you want to write multiple content also, we can write that. Okay. Now same thing what I want to do, now I want to do file reader. I want to read from a file in terms of characters. So I have a file, but I want to read from a file in terms of characters. So what is the class name?
Reader.
File reader. File reader. This is the file. Very simple. File reader. File reader equal to new file reader. And there we specify the file object. That's it. Now you want to read multiple content. So what you do? File reader dot read. So read, you will get the input. This is the input. Now you will continue till the time we have input not equal to -1. At the end you will get the output as -1. So you will keep on printing that input dot just the input, and I will just typecast that to the character. No, there we don't have to do. Otherwise your output will change. It will go in infinite loop. Right? Then what you do? Input equal to file reader dot read. So each time you get the character and you go further. That's it. And finally close the stream. That's it. So first we have the file, then you have the file reader, you specify the file object, then you read the input, and you will continue till the time you have input that is not equal to -1. So at the end you will get the -1 as a input. -1 not equal to -1, that is false, and that is end of your while loop. And you each time you get the element, you print that and you go to the next element. Same thing, we haven't done anything much. File reader and file input stream.
आउटपुट स्ट्रीम एंड राइटर में भी ये रहेगा
Same ही रहेगा mostly. Now we are getting from the file, then we are getting one by one and printing. So we are able to print that. Simple. Okay. So one thing also we'll do, that is
file right
yes.
demo
This should be demo 1. This should be
कॉपी भी नहीं करती सर हाँ
this is a file
आउटपुट
file output stream, right?
आउटपुट आउटपुट
This is file input stream, file output stream, this is file reader. So similarly what I will do, I will create demo 4. There I will use file writer. Now what we have to do, we have to simply change in terms of character, and the class name is file writer. I will simply change to file writer, and I will simply change this to file writer. That's it. That's it. Now if you want to write multiple things, that also you can write. Since this is file writer, you can say write. You can specify a string also. So I can say string this is a string I will be able to write. Simple. Now what happens? Now there is already content inside the PQR. Now if I run the program, what will happen? You know, it will overwrite if I run. Now if you do not want to overwrite, you want to append the content, we have to say true. True means append. Now you are going to append. Now let me run this. You are going to append at the end of the string. Now if it is by default it is false, it means it is going to overwrite. Pilot operation done. Let's check the file. If you see here, it has appended. It has appended. Now if I remove this, by default it is false, and it will overwrite. Overwrite means your A will be replaced with whatever the content, not only A, whatever the content is there inside the file, that everything will be overwritten. Right? Now let me open the file. Now right now this entire thing will be replaced with only welcome to string. It is building, it is taking little time. Pilot operation. Now let's check the file. Replaced. Yes. So it is a good practice. If you want, you write true. Simple. So we are able to read from a file in terms of bytes. So if I want to say that I will read from the file in terms of read, in terms of bytes. This is write bytes, write in terms of bytes. File reader, you are going to read from a file, read in terms of characters. Here you are going to write in terms of characters. Now, one interesting thing is all these classes are very slow classes. All these classes are very slow classes. Why?
One byte at a time. One.
Yes. Now, let's say I have this file and I want to read from this file. And this is your Java application. Now you are directly reading from this file with the help of, let's say, file input stream. Or let's say you are writing to a file in terms of, let's say this is also file, and there you are using either file output stream or you can use file writer. Here you can write file reader. So in this case, in both of the case, what happens? Every time you try to read a byte or a character, every time you try to read a byte or a character, they will check the permissions of file. मतलब आप लेट से आपके पास 10,000 कैरेक्टर्स हैं, तो आप 10,000 टाइम्स आप रीड ऑपरेशन या राइट ऑपरेशन कर रहे हो, तो आपको 10,000 टाइम्स फाइल का परमिशन चेक करना पड़ेगा, right? And this is very slow operation. Now let's say if the file is very big, if the file size is very big, then you will not be able to write, right? Now I will just, now instead of you directly reading and writing from a file, what we do, we take a buffer here also. Now first of all, if you want to read from a file, first of all what you will do now, you will get the content into buffer in one shot by checking the permission only once, and then from the buffer one by one we will read. Here also, instead of writing to directly file, what we do, we write to a buffer one by one. There is no change, there is no requirement of checking the permission. Then from this buffer you write to the file directly. So this particular buffer is a permanent, this is a temporary storage. This is part of your runtime memory that time. So this is the buffer. What we will do, now if you want to read from a file, we will not directly read from the file. First we will get the content of the file into a buffer in one shot, and similarly if you want to write to a file, first we will write to a buffer and then we will write to a file. Simple. So what is buffer? Buffer is kind of a temporary storage. Now it is going to improve the performance of your application. I will show you the difference also in the performance of both reading in the file as well as with the buffer. We'll try to understand both of the ways. Now in this case what happens? Instead of you reading from the file directly, you read from the buffer. Instead of you writing to a file, you read from a buffer. So we have two types of buffer classes: buffered reader, buffered writer. Similarly, buffered input stream, buffered output stream. Right? Now what I will do, I want to read from a buffer. I want to read from a buffer. What I want to do, read from the buffer in terms of buffered input stream. So in case of, we are going to read in terms of bytes. Check. Now there what we have to do, we have to have the file. Now everything looks same. You will have the file, read from a file. Now read from a buffer in terms of bytes. So what is the class name? Buffered input stream. So we have the file. There also we are going to use file input stream, but we are not going to use with the help of file input stream. So we will add one more thing there. What is that? Buffered input stream equal to new buffered input stream, and there we specify file input stream. There I specify the file input stream. Check. First we create the file object, then we create the file input stream, buffered input stream, A file object is given as an input the file input stream. File input stream object is given to the buffer input stream. Take. Now you want to read, but don't read using file input stream. Use with the help of buffered input stream. There also, there also. And finally close the buffered input stream first and then close the file input stream. That's it. First you have the file, give the object as input to the file input stream, then create the object of buffered input stream, give the object of file input stream as an object, and then using the buffered stream you read buffered stream. You are using with the help of buffered input stream, and then finally you close the buffered input stream and also file input stream. That's it. Now this will be pretty much faster. This is pretty much faster. So this is going to work. So this will be faster as compared, because this machine is running multiple applications, that's why it is taking time. Otherwise it is going to be very faster. Now I want to write to a file. What I want to write to a file in terms of, or you want to read in terms of character only. Read characters. There I am going to use buffered writer. I want to read from a buffer in terms of characters. I want to read from a buffer in terms of characters. So for that purpose I am going to use buffered writer. Simple. Here you have to use file reader. There also you have to use file reader, and this you have to change to file reader. And this buffered input stream you will change with the buffered writer. Buffered writer. And there we have to specify F6 buffered writer. Now buffered writer dot, this is file reader. Okay, that's fine. Sorry, it should be reader. Sorry, my bad. Buffered reader. I want to read, right? Yes. Buffered reader. This should be also buffered reader. Perfect. So file object, file reader object, buffered reader object, and you try to read that. Now we are reading with the help of buffered input stream also and buffered reader also. What we have written? Buffered writer. Sorry, my bad. Buffered reader. Buffered reader. Buffered reader, read characters. That's it. We'll be able to read the characters in terms of characters from the buffer. We are able to read from a buffer in terms of bytes as well as in terms of characters also. Next, we just want to write that simply. Now we have written the operation. Here we have done the write operation. We'll do the write operation also. See, we are able to do the reading operation. Now I want to write to a buffer. I want to write. Now write, you take the same example. Now what I want to do, I want to write to a buffered output stream in terms of write in terms of bytes. So I am going to write to a buffer in terms of bytes. So what we have to do, simply, we already have file, so we will not create the file. I will have file output stream. Now we have to use buffered output stream. Buffered output stream equal to new buffered output stream, and there you specify file output stream as an input, and instead of you using file output stream, you use buffered output stream, and then you close buffered output stream dot close. That's it. This is close. This is object creation. file object, buffered output stream, file output stream object, buffered output stream object. File object is input to file output stream, file output stream object is input to the buffered output stream, and then you call buffered output stream dot write, and finally you close. Yes, yes, that's it. Or you just if you want to append, you can do that. Now here you can specify if you want to append or nothing. So I will say true. So by this way, what will happen? You will not overwrite the things. You will append the thing here. So I am writing to a buffer first, and then from buffer to file. That's it. File write operation able to perform. Let's check this. We are able to add at the end. Yes. The same thing I will do for the writer. So I want to write to a, now what is my intention? I want to write to a buffer. So for that purpose I am using buffered writer. I am going to write in terms of character. Names are very big, so that's fine. So there I have to use file writer. I have to file writer. File writer, writer. I will just change this to file writer. There you have to use buffered writer, buffered writer, and I will just change the name to buffered writer. Rest everything remains same. Objects are created, write, close, and file operation close. I am using append here also because I don't want to change the file. That's it. So 8 classes: file input stream, file output stream, buffered input stream, buffered output stream, file reader, file writer, buffered reader, buffered writer.
PQR will have double A.
Sorry?
PQR file.
PQR file.
Will have
Yes.
double A now.
Double A now. Yes. AA. Simple? Simple. That's quick. Now we have one last 2 classes: object input stream and object output stream. So what is this object input stream and object output stream? I will try to explain that, what we are trying to do with that. So abc.txt, there I have written the complete details. So to read and write in terms of bytes, we have multiple classes. So what are the classes we have? File input stream, file output stream. Then we have, let me check that. These are all related to bytes. Now similarly, to read and write in terms of characters, we have these classes: file reader writer, buffered reader writer. Here also we have file input stream, output stream, buffered input stream, buffered output stream, and object input stream, object input stream, object output stream. Here to read and write in terms of characters, we have file reader, file writer, buffered reader, buffered writer. Simple. So one last thing, we'll talk about the object input stream. So that process, what is that process? So they will ask you the question: serialization and deserialization. So serialization means It is a process of saving an Java object in the file permanently. If you want to do a object, now if you want to save a Java object in the file permanently, to perform serialization, we use object output stream and serializable interface. Two things. Now, what is deserialization? It is a process of reading a Java object from a file into the program. Now, to perform deserialization, what we do?
Object input stream.
We use object input stream. And serialize it. Sorry?
Same thing.
Yes. We use both things. What do we do that? Let's try to do that. Now I am talking about serialization and deserialization. Serialization. That is demo 1. Here I will say serialization. Okay, now I have a class, let's say called as student, and there I am specifying int id, student id, and it has student name, and it will have string student address. ठीक, I will generate couple of getter setters. Constructor I will generate. I will use default constructor also, that is 0 parameterize. Then I will have toString also. Why I am using toString? Because whenever you try to print object of this class, you will get the. Okay, now first of all I will create an object student equal to new student, and I will say one Sachin, let's say Pune. Okay, so this is the object I have created. Now I want to save this object into a file. So what I will do, I will create a file equal to new file, and I will give name as student.txt file. This is a file, and I will create the file also. Exception I will provide, and I will create the file also. File dot create new file. First time I am creating the file. Now I want to write a object to a file. So for writing purpose, we use first of all file output stream equal to new file output stream, and there I specify the file. Then I use third object, that is object output stream equal to new object output stream. There I specify file output stream, and finally I say object output stream dot write object. There is a method called as write object, and there I specify the student. And finally what I have to do, I have to close object output stream dot close. Then I have to close file output stream object also I have to close. Tick, and finally I will say object saved, student object saved. That's it. First student object you have created, then you created file object, then you have created a file, then you created a. So this is what file object, file output stream, object output stream. File is the input to the file output stream is the input to the object output stream. And then finally object output stream dot write object, you specify the student, and then you close the object output stream and close the file output stream also. Check. Now just run this. What will happen? First file will be created, then data will be stored in that particular object. Let's see that. Now there will be one exception. There will be one exception. So what is the exception we are going to get? If we do not implement serializable interface, we get, what do we get? Let's see the exception. So there will be exception. So which object you are trying to save? Student. So student class must implement one interface. I will talk about that also. So if you do not implement serializable interface, we get serializable. It is the interface. No, not serializable exception. We get not serializable exception. If you do not implement this, then you will get the exception. So what we do, implements serializable. That's it, and it is empty. It is a markup interface. Let's run this one more time. Now it will work.
The class has to implement.
Yes, class. Object which you are trying to save, that class. Yes, it is empty interface. Because they are saying that this particular class object is ready to serialize. It is just a marking purpose, means this particular object can be saved in the file. Now let's check, do we have the file created? Yes. So this file contains the object, right? Now I want to read the object once back. I want to read the object which is stored from that file. So I will do that. I want to read the object. That is called as deserialization. Simple. So file is already there. We don't need to create the file. So file is already there. New file, and what is the file name? Student.txt. This is a file name, student.txt. That's it. Next, what we have to do? I have to read from a file. So for that, I have to use file input stream. File input stream equal to new file input stream. There I specify the file, and then I have to say throws exception. Then I use object input stream. Now we are reading now. Object input stream. There I specify file input stream. That's it. Now what you do? File input stream, object input stream, and finally we read the object input stream, and we have a read object. Now the object. Now if you are trying to read the object and that class is not present, you are trying to read the object but that class is not present, so you get class not found exception. And the object that we are going to get, it is going to be of type student. So I will typecast that to the student. That's it. And finally I simply say student, and I will close the object input stream dot close and file input stream dot close. That's it. Now it will print the student detail objects 101, whatever it is. Right? Perfect. Now there is one last thing I want to tell you for this. Now let's say I do not want to save the student address in the object. So I simply use a keyword called as transient. The transient means this particular field will not be saved in the file. So I am once again saving the content. So how do I use transient on the field? When I try to serialize this one more time. Hmm? Sorry?
That data you didn't have to save.
Yes.
So then why do you need to take the input of that?
No. Sometime what happens, there might be some password or something that you don't want to save, that you want to skip.
Yes.
Now I will read that object now. I have saved that object. Now I will try to read that. Now in the read, you will get only ID and name. Address will be null.
Acha, the field will be there.
Yes.
Column will be there.
Yes, but the value will be null. Understood? Okay. I think that's it. Very rapidly and quickly for the file handling. Oh my God.